That's it. Witness
Let's
protection program. All right, you ready to get going here?
yeah, let's get going. Let's kick it off. So we are here today for the second edition in our the Complete Flow Trader series. This whole series that we're doing is all about flow, and it's all in preparation for the launch of Wall Street Jesus' new course, which is called the Complete Flow Trader. It is the only time that he has ever taught his methods live in any capacity for the public. So, and it's probably going to be the only time he does it maybe ever again. I mean, we'll see, but it's a big deal. We're going to go into that certainly later in the webinar. We'll give you all the details on that, talk about some special offers that we have going. But today, as I said, this is the second session in our series of 4 webinars where we're talking about flow. And the first one was with Lucci and Wall Street Jesus, talking about how they trade flow differently, different styles, and ways to leverage flow. We just had somebody, we've had people ask for the recording. Just go to the Sang Lucci YouTube channel, and the recording is up there. You can see that. And today it's just myself. My name is Charlie Bathgate. I am the CEO of our operations over here at Sang Lucci and Wall Street Jesus, and I'm joined by Wall Street Jesus. And we're here to talk about the anatomy of a sweep. So this webinar today is really about going deep into the most important type of flow that you need to know about. For those of you who are new to flow, this is going to be a very good sort of intro primer to really help you wrap your mind around the advantage the flow can give you and how to start using it to your advantage. And then for you, those of you who are a little more advanced, I'm sure that Jay is going to drop in some more advanced kind of tidbits for you to pick up on and start using in your trading. So, Jay, one of the first places that I want to start out with is the fact that you are the originator of a lot of the terminology that people use to talk about flow. And if I'm not mistaken, that is true for sweeps, right?
Oh, no. Well, not sweepers, referring to them as, individuals in a sense.
Right.
But a lot, it's a lot of it's slang,
Right.
which can make the game fun, especially when you look at it through a gambling point of view, as a lot of us do. But yeah, a lot of what I did, because again, I was brought up in that gambling background. A lot of that terminology comes from there. So I'm not going to take credit that I'm the creator of it. A lot of people in this game, in the market, trading equities, options, maybe aren't familiar with that terminology. So it's more of gambling terminology applied to the options market.
Apply to the options market. Got you. Okay, so let's start with the basics and just kind of dial it in for people here, Jay. What, and we don't need to go entirely back into flow and what it is and everything, because we covered that last week. People, if you guys want to kind of get to that, you can go back and look at the last session with Lucci instead of doing that in this episode. But Jay, let's talk about a sweep. Can you give kind of the broad definition of what a sweep is, and then we can start going into the details from there. And if you want to also pull up your screen, obviously share your screen, anything like that, feel free to go for it.
And I mean, what I like to do, I found that the easiest way to explain this stuff is basically taken in general terms, just simple English, so the individual can understand the logic behind, not just the definition, but why it matters, what makes it so significant, why is it important. And from that point, the more, just like anything in this game, the more you're around the information, the more you see it, the more questions you ask, the more you're going to understand even the most intricate details regarding it. Okay, so that's where I would always like to start, is just general and simple English. And like what I tell a lot of my Twitter followers, when I had a Twitter account, a sweep, basically, the best way to look at it initially, and then we'll talk a little bit about what it actually is it's an aggressive order. Okay, so if you think about it, like, we're looking for, most of the time, we're looking for aggressive buyers in the option market. Okay, a player that's out there looking to take an aggressive approach as far as placing a bet, right? So that's what we're looking for in simple terms on a day-to-day basis. Now, we'll get into it a little bit later. There can be aggressive sellers as well, and those can be sweeps. But the signals, for the most part, what we're looking for aggressive buyers. And that's what a sweep order is, as opposed to the rest of the ways you can place transactions in an option market, right? You can negotiate blocks, their call spreads, their straddles, strangles, all sorts of combination plays, right? The majority of those plays are not, again, a fund or an individual taking an aggressive approach to placing that order. They're looking for a better price. They're looking for a good fill. Sometimes they'll split that order up to get, a better price as far as the fill on the order. A sweep is when that individual or fund is looking to get their hands on exposure as quick as possible. Okay. Right. And if you think about it, this is something Lucha used to talk about all the time. One of the more important things, and now the game has changed where the more regular guy has access to more of what the professionals can get as far as research, processing orders, the whole 9 yards. But if you think of it logically, a sweep, okay, is only primarily used by professionals. Okay, the majority of individuals on this webinar right now are not, when they go buy calls on Robinhood or Thinkorswim, are not doing it via the sweep. Okay, so right there, right, that's a noteworthy piece of information as opposed to the rest of the flow around it. It's for professional use, right? Right. So what we're looking for now, if you think about it, right, if you look at sweepers as simply just an aggressive buyer, okay, who's looking to get exposure, get his hands involved, right, on the calls or puts, not concerned about the price. I guess the word to put on is urgency, okay? And that's what it stresses to us. There's an urgency there, okay? And we use the example, I don't know if we used it the last webinar, but I use it so many times. If a little birdie whispered in your ear that NVIDIA was going to announce a 4-for-1 stock split, okay? And you really had confidence in that individual who's giving you that information. Like he knows what he's talking about. This is definitely legit, okay? If you had access to what the pros use to process these orders, okay, you're not going to go out there the next day and sit on the bid to buy, to get exposure in that name. You know what I mean? You're almost going to be in a rush, right? You're going to have that urgency to get as much as you can. Like when you got information like that, you can't find enough money to get enough exposure. Okay. It's that urgency. Right. And, anybody here can put themselves in those shoes. You know what I mean? If you had access to that information, what are you going to do? Are you going to go buy, you're going to go open up call spreads tomorrow in NVIDIA? So just think of it logically sometimes. Makes it a lot easier to understand, okay? And just quickly, a sweep, what it actually means, okay? We look for when they go across multiple exchanges to get fills, okay? So think of it like this. There's a bid in the offer, right? You're buying usually at the offer. What a sweep is that, again, individual or fund is placing buy orders to take out all the offers across every exchange that's out there. You understand? Right. So whoever's offering out those calls, that sweep order is going to sweep across those multiple exchanges to get filled, right? So again, it's obviously an aggressive order, and not to say that every sweep is noteworthy or actionable, but it makes this game a lot easier as far as reading flow when you're just looking at that particular pile, right? Because again, it's the behavior involved.
Yeah.
But that's the best way for these guys to understand it initially, because again, we're holding one webinar. And if you follow me on Twitter or StockTwits and you're wondering what a sweep is, it's an aggressive bet is the best way to look at it. The best aggressive bet.
And Jay, would you say that the framework that we use to sort of understand the market and all of the strategies that you employ, that it's all based on the framework of large market participants, institutional players are the ones that are creating the moves that other traders want to get in on? Would you say that that's kind of
for the most part, and not even, it doesn't have to necessarily be an institution, but the simple way to explain it and understand it is, we all try to get knowledgeable in this game, by doing the homework, following Bloomberg and all that. No matter, how much we read or watch and do our due diligence, there's always going to be a group of people out there that know a lot more than us, right? They're always going to have access to information that we can never get our hands on. Okay. And those are the individuals that are processing orders like this, right? And that's, again, not to say that every single order that's processed that way is actionable, but you're putting the pieces to the puzzle together with, like you mentioned, I don't want to use it because it's overused, the smarter money out there, but the professional money out there, professional money out there. And I'll give you an example, okay? Like when we see aggressive sweeper buying with size, okay? So like even the smallest sweep can create momentum. That's how significant it is, okay? That's why like day trading, I call sweeper activity the most potent momentum indicator in real time that you'll ever come across in this game, because the buying creates instant momentum. You'll see it on the chart. You see it in the market. So when you see a fund or an individual stepping in size, like a lot of times we'll hear about who did that buying a couple weeks, a month later,
right.
Like Elliott Management built a position in XYZ, or this hedge fund built up. So to answer your question, a lot of times, especially the ones who accumulate a big position, are those institutions and big fish out there. But it's not all of it. I would say it's professional money is the best way to explain it.
And a lot of times this is the vehicle, sweep is the vehicle that they're using to accumulate these positions and to establish themselves. And that action, those moves, or that establishment of that position is what creates momentum that if you're a day trader or swing trader or even longer term investor, you can get in on. That's like the fundamental premise.
Yeah, basically, and that's why it's like for any style out there, this intel has something for each particular style out there. Because if you're day trading, okay, all you care about is momentum, right? That's all you care about, and all you should be looking for is you're looking for intraday momentum. You're not you don't care what the stock may do a day or two from now if you're day trading, okay? So what you're looking for is that sweeper activity, so that aggressive buying to create momentum. So you're the best way to look at it is you're getting in the middle of that aggressive buying. Let's say you, Charlie Bathgate, is managing $1 billion, right? And you're going in to buy, like we saw today, DDD, triple D, okay? You're sweeping calls there aggressively. If I knew you were buying a size, in a name like that, if I'm a day trader, I just want to get in the middle of that buying. You know what I mean? I don't need you to be right 3 months from now as a day trader. I just want to get in the middle of that little buying frenzy that your buying helps create. And that is a day trade, right? That's a trade for the day. So that's different than relying on, let's say, again, you're Charlie Bathgate, you're building a position DDD. I like what you're buying. I feel good about it. I like, the action coming in. I want to make a bet alongside you're betting. You understand? So that's
Yep.
more for position, swing trading, etc. So there's two ways to look at it. Not only is it creating momentum for scalping and day trading purposes, but it also could be, a great stock selection tool as to what the money in the know, quote unquote, is getting involved in.
And one of the things that I think is important to like zoom out and understand about your perspective on markets, Jay, and your strategy and correct me if I'm wrong in this description, but it kind of reminds me of like certain types of martial arts, right? Where if you are a smaller guy and you're in the ring with somebody who is twice your size, they, some styles would try and like just go at that guy, right? That larger opponent and fight them with everything you've got and, just try and outlast them and, mind over matter and blah, 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 blah. But other strategies, other martial arts approaches would try to leverage that larger player, leverage their weight, leverage their size against them, right? This is something like, jujitsu, Krav Maga or something like that. And in talking to you about your strategy, when we first started working together, years and years ago, you were like, I'm not out here to outsmart smart money. That's ridiculous. That's like a losing proposition. They have advantages. They have tools that I know I'm never going to have. But it's easy for me if I can just watch them and watch what they're doing and make money off of what they're doing, then I'm good. I don't need to take them on head on. Is that kind of like?
Yeah, exactly. Because the thing is like, no matter, how much you can strive, and don't get me wrong, it's great to have lofty goals, okay? But you got to be a realist in this game, No matter how hard you try to mirror some of these individuals and funds, you're just not capable of doing it. You don't have the ammo, you don't have the firepower, you don't have the knowledge, for obvious reasons. Yeah. So that's why, I tell a lot of even Steam Room members at times, you got to find a style that suits you, you're comfortable with, okay? And like you mentioned, you're not trying to do exactly what these big guys are doing. You're just trying to kind of ride the coattails and get what you want out of it. You know what I mean? And, it's a thing you come to acknowledge over time. It's not easy. This game obviously is not easy for many reasons, but finding a style that you're comfortable with and that suits your risk and your account size and all that stuff is obviously, really important in this game. And once you
which is one of the things that we are going to teach, that we teach in the course, shameless plug, but anyways, go on. Sorry, Jeff.
The thing is, you got to start somewhere, and that somewhere, the most important thing is to find consistency, in my opinion, because then the money will come. You know what I mean? Once you have the confidence, the conviction to find that you are finding consistency, you'll find the money. Once you believe that you figured it out, like you can win more than you lose and it's not luck, you'll get your hands on the money. Some way, somehow, you'll get your hands on the money. But the most important thing is to figure out, how you're wired, what style you're comfortable with, what can you sit every day, day in, day out, and find a disciplined approach and stick with, right? There's so many players that come into this game, they bounce around constantly. There's a losing trade there. Let me hop around to what this guy does. I'll try, Elliott Waves, or I'll try that constant bouncing around. You're never going to figure anything out. But once and that's the thing I said, like, once you figure out what not only you need to do, but what you're capable of doing with, again, the account size, the risk, and your temperament. And that's my main mission out of this course. Okay. I'm not trying to be overly modest here or anything. I told you this, Charlie. I don't look at myself as an educator. That's the last thing I look at myself as. Okay.
Right.
But, I've been in the game long enough and I've been doing certain things long enough that I can share certain things, certain information that people could find very useful. And the main course, the main takeaway out of this course for me is going to be to have individuals have an idea when they come to the desk the next morning what exactly they need to look for each and every day out of the order flow for their particular style. You know what I mean? For their particular style. So they know what to look for. They know where to start. They know where to finish. Executing, that's all on them, right? I think even Lucci mentioned this. You can't push buttons for them. But at least, because there's so much flow out there right now all over the place on social media and stuff like that, and people just buying off big orders. And, I think they're going to find quite useful of what they exactly need to look for that suits them, right? You don't care about anybody else. And that comes from sweeper activity.
And that's one of the reasons why we're creating, we took a long time to create this course, and we're revealing it now, we're launching it now, is because there are so many people, there's so many people who come to us who have been subscribers to other sources of flow. There's tons of them out there. You can Google it and find them all over the place. And they're like, I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. I saw these orders coming in. I was buying, on these sweeps when I saw them pop up, and I lost money. What's the problem? And that's one of the reasons why we created this course. And you don't have to be, we have the steam room. We have the Wall Street Jesus steam room. You can go in and you can get the data through us and be in our community. And that's great. But you could also take this course that, everything you learn from Jay in the course, and go take it and use it, apply it to another service. Like, well, we're going to teach you how to make sense of this information, this like fire hose of information, of this data that is coming at you on a daily basis, and leverage it for your own profitability, rather than just following, every single trade, that every single piece of data that comes down that pipeline, and hoping that it's going to work out in your favor.
It's the ability, and like I said, when you're done with the course, you're going to have the ability to actually put a real plan together. You know what I mean? Yeah. All right, I'm, Joe Schmo. I'm strictly going to day trade. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I'm trying to do on a day-to-day basis. I'm staying away from this. I'm only interested in this. And you work on now the beauty of having a plan that you believe in is now each and every day you come to your desk, you're working on one thing, execution. That's it. Okay. And that, from repetition, the more you do it, the more you hang around in this game, the more you're going to get better at it. You're going to make little mistakes. I should have stopped out earlier, or I should have done this, I should have done that. Those are all little things that over time you can get better at. But having the plan, something to stick to, those guidelines to stick to, and having an idea each and every day when you come and fire up the computers of what the hell you're going to do that day. I can guarantee you, especially on the newer side, a lot of players in this game have no plan whatsoever coming in. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll swing trade today. Maybe I'll day trade. Maybe I'll scalp. Maybe I'll write options. Whatever the day brings, I'll have some fun.
Right.
So,
right.
And that's fine. But if you're looking to get to that point of finding consistency, that's obviously something you can't do, right? You got to work on that.
So Jay, what about, there's people in this audience right now who are watching the recording who come from all sorts of different types of backgrounds. There's going to be a lot of people who come from some sort of technical analysis, or charting background, which is totally fine. I'm certainly not here to shit on that. But what do you say to people who are like, why is it so important to watch flow? Like, why does that give me edge why can't I just wait and see it sort of bear out on the chart, in a head and shoulders pattern or whatever? What do you say back to that?
Again, and that's something I wanted to share on today's webinar, not just obviously advertising the course, which we're going to do anyway, but for people who are on social media, who follow, me or Lucci or whatever the case, and aren't familiar with sweepers, they came to the webinar to get a better idea of what I mean when I'm posting a tweet regarding sweepers. Pull up. Let me share my screen. I can share my screen, right? Hang on a second. Let me do that. All right. So you guys on social media, you see me constantly post XYZ bull sweeper detected, or sometimes you see me get excited and I'll write size bull missile detected, something of that shit, right? And off that, okay, again, if you know what's going on within the flow, if you have a pretty good idea of what bet is real and what bet isn't, okay, just knowing that there was a legitimate sweep can be a valuable edge and an unbelievable tool if you're day trading, okay? And again, people have to understand, it doesn't mean that every time a name is going to catch a sweep, it's going to moon, as a lot of you guys say, okay? That's not what it means. What it means is there's a high probability that you're going to see momentum come into the name. Now, how long does that momentum last, right? How strong that momentum may be, that depends on a lot of other things, right? Do they continue to aggressively buy the name? Do they continue to aggressively sweep that name? Obviously, that would help as far as the momentum being stronger is concerned, okay? Does the market roll over and start to bleed? Obviously, the momentum probably would dry up and run out a lot quicker if that was the case. So there's a lot of other things that we can't predict or foresee, okay? But you already have an edge. You have to deal with that stuff anyway. There's no way around that stuff, okay? But you already have an edge knowing that the odds of momentum coming into the name have just gone up dramatically because there was an aggressive bet in the option market. All right. And I'm just trying to think of examples. Probably some people on here have better examples than I do over the course of today. My brain gets like fried around this time. But just to give you guys an understanding, right? This is a name I played today. Okay. DDD. We've been seeing some accumulation in this name, some good looking buying, even though the stock's been, I don't know what the hell's going on, why they're getting excited about it, but somebody's building a position in the name. Okay, we've seen some nice buying with time come in. All of a sudden this morning, it's already been on our watch. Somebody comes in and sells puts. Okay, I don't even want to get into that, but they sell puts. It's bullish activity. So that's some more bullish action, right? Then on top of that, like right after that, aggressive sweepers. So again, I'm not trying to dumb it down for those of you who know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to make it understandable for those who may not even be familiar with the term. Aggressive sweepers came in weekly strikes. Okay, so let's put that in simple English. There a player or a fund out there was aggressively speculating in weekly calls. Okay, that's what that sweeper activity meant. All right. So if a player is aggressively sweeping in weekly calls, right? Where's the volume? I don't have volume on here. I thought I did. Hold on. Let me find that because that's a big deal. The likelihood is he's looking for a move now, right? And you'll see what happens to the stock almost instantly as that action comes in. How do I do this? Hold on. Volume. How do I have volume on this chart? No, that's not it. What's going on here? Hold on. Oh, here it is. All right, there you can see volume there. So I could give you guys an idea. Right, and I don't even know exactly when it came in, the exact time, but more than likely, probably this might have been the start of it, the spike in volume. But I'm trying to give you guys an example. You will see something to the effect of this, and all of a sudden the stock come to life off legitimate sweeper activity. Okay, so think about it in day trading terms now, right? If 9.5 out of 10 stocks, something just like this, forget about all this that happened. Okay, we're just talking about where that sweep came in volume. You know that there's going to be life momentum coming into the name, right? As a day trader, if you like that setup, right? If you're day trading equity, All right. A lot of people think you have to trade options to follow sweeper activity. Couldn't be farther from the truth. Okay. If you're day trading equity, which a lot of people day trade equity, not options, you would look for an entry here, right? You put a stop wherever you feel your risk would be managed properly. And you're looking for that momentum to continue based off that aggressive betting that came in here, right? And if for some reason the market rolls over, there's no additional betting and the momentum runs out, you get stopped out for a small loss, you move on, right? That's day trading, okay? If there happens to be a decent amount of momentum that comes in, right? You could do a variety of things. You could ride a stop higher, you could take your profit, but you understand the edge in sweeper activity and why it makes it such a potent intraday indicator is because what other indicator, when it fires off, are you going to see an instant reaction in the underlying, in the equity? You know what I mean? Like, for example, give me an indicator, MACD, relative strength, any oscillator. You don't see instant reaction off these things where volume comes in and you see the indicator work, right? So they take time to develop, whatever the case may be. You don't see the market react instantly. With sweeper activity, you see the market react instantly. Instantly. There's momentum that comes into the name. And that's what makes it such a deadly tool. And I guess, Charlie, I should explain why momentum comes into the name, like what creates that momentum, or do we even bother talking about that?
Yeah, we can talk about that. And guys, I'm seeing a good number of questions come in. Do me a favor and put those in the Q&A section of Zoom, because that'll help me keep them all straight when we're going through this. And we'll get to the Q&A section in a few. But yeah, Jay, go ahead and go deeper on it.
Yeah, so again, I'm going to try to keep it in as simple terms as possible so everybody understands it, even if you're not an options aficionado, okay? And just so everybody understands, I'm not an options guy. People don't realize that. I've been an equities guy my whole career. Equities have been, my baby for the course of my career. I started trading options more and more as I became more familiar with them. But to this day, I solely day trade equity, and I like to swing trade calls because of, the added leverage. But the reason why I'm saying that is for those of you who don't trade options and trade equities, sweeper activity could be even more useful to you than somebody who trades solely options. Okay. But the reason why there's instant momentum is simply because put yourself in the market maker's shoes. Okay. You make a market in options, right? You hear a lot of people on Twitter, they troll me. They go, for every buyer, there's a seller, oh yeah, you're seeing buying in DDD, but somebody sold those. That's a crock of shit. Okay. In the options market, the market makers have to make a market. Okay. They have to make a market. So if somebody wants to buy DDD calls, okay, they have to make a market in it and offer the DDD calls. Okay. They don't have to hold on to the other side of that bet. Okay. What they do is they hedge the risk off of that bet. All right. So again, think of it logically now. A professional or a fund or a hedge fund comes in and they aggressively are sweeping DDD calls. You think that market maker wants to hold the other side of that ticket? Okay. So what are they going to do? They got to hedge off that risk by either buying DDD equity or buying calls, but getting long side exposure to DDD, right? That's how they hedge that action that just came in. Okay. What does that do to the underlying, right? It's almost like a snowball effect. It creates more buying and creates hence more momentum. Okay. And that's why a lot of times, especially those who were in the steam room would know, when you see them coming one after the other, okay, when aggressive sweeps come in one after the other, you see stocks just go bananas. Okay, because if somebody's coming in buying Roblox, $500,000 worth of calls, and then 2 minutes later, he's hitting them again for another 500,000, then another 300,000, then another 200,000. You know, the market maker has to hedge off that risk. Other people will finally catch on to that buying, okay? And you're going to get a nice round of momentum that comes in. Again, this has nothing to do, Charlie, and I think people don't fully understand it. This has nothing to do with the Roblox, whoever's placing those bets working out. This has nothing to do with being right or wrong on the bet.
Right.
You understand? When you're day trading, you don't concern yourself with those calls working out 2 months from now. It means nothing. You know what I mean? All you're concerned about is the momentum that it creates and how to get in the middle and take advantage of it. All right. And,
Well said.
just so you understand, it's not any, excuse my French, but crystal bullshit that's out there. It's not some forecast that we're pulling out of our rear end. It's based on actual buying and selling, based on positioning, right? More buyers than sellers, stock price goes up. And that's what creates the momentum.
And guys, if you haven't already picked up on this already, one of the reasons why saying Lucci and Wall Street Jesus was such a natural sort of marriage in terms of philosophy and the way that we teach and everything is because we're pretty hardcore when it comes to really looking at what actually moves markets. And from our perspective, with Lucci and tape, with Jesus and flow, it's order flow. It's buying and selling activity. That's it. At the found, it's just like economics 101, what creates price, buying and selling. That's it. And that's what we're basing, what we base everything that we teach, everything, emanates outwards from that. So,
and I see great comments and questions already. But one from Big Rick, who's asking, like, how do you know when a sweep is rolling or closing? That's the thing, Rick. That's the piece of the puzzle that a lot of people don't have access to, and why you can't just simply set some screen or scanner to spit out size orders, because if you don't have access to what you're talking about, the information is useless, right? And that's why you're asking that, because right? If you don't know if that individual is opening up a new aggressive bet, then everything we're talking about doesn't mean anything, right?
Right.
So that's, I'm trying to think of the word, but that's the sauce. That's the secret sauce behind it all. That's why I stay in front of the screen all day long and I'm staring at order flow. Obviously, I wish I could set a scan and just spit out money, but that's the reason why I'm watching the flow all day long and digging and trying to see, okay, is this a new, clean, aggressive bet here? Because if it is, it's something we need to know about. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good time. That's a good segue for us to talk real quick about the course, because we're actually getting a lot of questions about the course right here. So for anybody who's like, listen, I don't care about this course, I'm not going to take the course, you can check out for a minute and we're going to come back and do Q&A. There's a lot of really good questions in the Q&A section about this, but I want to answer some questions about the course and give the rundown on it. Jay, can I share my screen?
Send it back to you. Hold on a second. How do I do that?
That's it. I got it. There we go. All right. So this is, as we said, this is the first time that Jay has ever taught his methods live. And we've been working together 5-6 years now. And this is the first time he's ever done it. And it's probably going to be the last time that, that he's going to do it, at least for a long while. We'll certainly do updates to the recordings of this course. So if you buy it, you get lifetime access to the recordings, and then you can come back if we do, an extra module on something, you'll have access to that. But if you want to learn from Jay live, then this is really your shot to do it. It launches on June 14th. So we're about 3 weeks away. And the whole point is to teach you everything you need to know about flow. So this is not like a, trading boot camp 101. We're going to teach you about how to price options and stuff like that. I mean, this is really about flow trading. If you want to learn some of the other stuff, you can learn that elsewhere. You can take the master course with Sanlucci. We certainly offer that. So you get 10 hours of class with Jay. So each class is about an hour and a half long. You get Q&A access to him, so you get to ask him questions, as much as you want. Go in depth to these things. I mean, this webinar, we've touched on just the most generic concept of, what a sweep is. We haven't talked at all about, spec sweepers and repeat sweepers and opening sweepers and like that. And then that's just sweepers. That's not talking about all the other components of flow. That's not talking about sentiment, which is a huge part of Jay's approach to trading and integrating flow into an overall trading framework. We haven't talked about customizing your, this information to your trading strategy, whether you're an equities day trader or an options swing trader or, whatever it is. Jay's going to give you a framework to really understand how to leverage this information as best as possible. A big part of this, of the course value, is that we give you 3 months of free access to the Steam Room, which is Wall Street Jesus' platform. So that's what this looks like, right? You get our proprietary flow feed. It's called the Wise Guy Alert feed. You get access to our community, which is full of like pretty incredible traders who are in here. It's not just Jay on a live broadcast every day, analyzing the flow, talking about what's moving, what's not, what you should pay attention to. It's we got people in here talking about it right now. I mean, there's some really, really good traders who are in here contributing a ton of value, analyzing what's going on. There's a room that is specifically dedicated just to the course. So, if you're a little bit shy in terms of talking in front of, a crew of, a couple hundred traders, which I totally understand, you can go in here, ask those questions in private. You can also direct message, anybody you want. All of our team is in there to answer your questions around that. So this is it's a pretty in-depth, experience if you want to absorb all this information. What else do I have in my notes here? So, we got to talk about this. So the schedule, the classes are held on Zoom. They're on Monday and Wednesday evenings. So they start at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. This is beginning on June 14th. So 7:30 p.m. Eastern, Monday and Wednesday nights. Recordings are available the following morning. Everything is accessible on the platform. So you wake up the next morning, you want to go back through the recording. A year from now, you want to go back through the recordings. 3 years from now, whatever, you have access to that. We definitely have people who sign up for our courses all the time, who can't make it live. They get access via the recording, and that's totally fine. One of the things that you should be aware of is that we are limiting the number of seats that are available to the public. So we started out at 100 last week. This is kind of hard to read here, but there's 84 seats left. The whole reason that we're doing this is because for a live class, we want to make sure it's a high quality educational experience. If we had 1,000 people, in the live class and everybody's asking Jay's questions, his head's going to explode. There's not enough coffee on the planet for that man to process all that. So we're keeping it relatively limited. And once these spots run out, they're out. There's nothing we're going to be able to do for you on that front. So, if you're considering it, we've been doing these courses for a long time. We know that everybody, 90% of y'all are going to wait until 2 days left, and then you're going to buy, because traders like to procrastinate, and you're going to wait and see if we're going to drop another discount, and are we going to drop the price by $500 or whatever it is. There's no more discounts coming. There's nothing left. If you guys want in, I just encourage you to get in. You also, once your free access starts immediately to the platform. So if you sign up now, you just get extra days of free access, and then your 3 months of access that come with the course, those start on June 14th. So if you sign up now, every day between now and June 14th, it's gravy. That's free access to you, on us. So there's no reason to wait. As we said, the course price is $2,000. The only exception to this is for people who are Sanlucci Master Course members, who are annual members of the Steam Room, or who are Steam Room members who have been with us for 6 months or more. If that's the case, if you fall into that category,
VIP.
then you should. Yeah, then you're VIP, and you should purchase from within the platform. You'll automatically have a discounted price applied within the platform. It's a kind of a tip of our hat to all you guys who've been with us. All you, I say guys, but that's generic. That's inclusive of women, of course. We got a lot of women traders in our chat room. So in our
and I wanted to say one thing too, Charlie, because I know, just being in their shoes. You hear courses and you hear all this material, and it can be overwhelming at times. Don't even think of it as that, because I'm not. Basically, guys, I'm just going to share with you what I know about this strategy, right? So in other words, when it comes to order flow and sentiment, that's all I do. That's all I've been doing. So you gain some knowledge just by experience of being around the game as long as I have. And I'm going to share with you guys whatever style you trade, right? Whatever product you trade. Like I saw somebody mention, can I use this for futures trading? If, in my opinion, you're not aware of at least generally where sentiment is at when you're trading futures, I can't even, like, I'd be lost in space if I had no idea where sentiment was at if I was trading this market. I really would be lost in space, no clue. So again, I'm not just saying it as a sales tactic. Anything you trade, from futures to equity to options to individual names to ETFs, that's the main goal of this course, is that you're gonna come out of the course knowing exactly what you need to see for your particular trading. Okay, so if you just, let's say for example, just trade futures and you just day trade futures, okay, there's going to be a chunk of this stuff that goes on there that you're really not going to use unless you develop another style over the course of your career. Okay, but what you will learn that you need to look for and how to use it is so important that, you know, it kind of makes up for all the rest that you're going to lose there. So just understand, like, it's not going to be an overwhelming course with a ton of material that you got to study and memorize. Again, my main goal is just for each and every one who's in this course to come out with a game plan of what they need to do that following morning. You know what I mean? To keep it simple, dumb things down. You got to keep things simple in this game. So you got to know what to look for. You know, you got to know what to look for.
Yeah,
I mean, as we understand that, because, you know, sometimes I know for me, like when you see a whole bunch of information out there, you got smoke coming out of your ears, you know, it's something you really may not want to be a part of.
Yeah, we really put a lot of time and effort into the structure of this course and making sure that we're only giving you guys just the absolute, you know, pearls of wisdom, just the best, most actionable information. We could have done 50 classes for this. I mean, Jay's been trading for 20 years. He's spent, I have no idea how many thousands of hours in front of the markets, in front of the screens, staring down flow. We could have gone infinitely in depth with this, and we really whittled it down to the most important, actionable information that does get pretty advanced, and we're going to make sure that you're ready for that advanced material when we get to it. You know, so like one of the things that we did, and I'll stop talking about the course after this, but one of the things that we did is Jay is going to give you guys like a ranking system in terms of flow. So being able to understand, you know, which bets in the market based on certain criteria are the ones that are the most bullish, which ones are the most bearish, and which ones are the ones that you should basically ignore, right? Like you're going to have a system coming out of this to understand, like, okay, this one has, you know, this one checks all these different boxes. This is probably something I should really pay attention to. You know, all the rest of this riffraff for the rest of the day, you know, this is bullshit. I don't need to pay attention to it. So anyways, enough of the spiel. If you guys want to sign up, you can do that. If you're already a member of our community, you can do that from within the platform. You just go to the account section of the platform, or if not, you just go to wallstreetjesus.com/complete-flow, or just go to products and click it down there. And yeah, we hope to see as many of you who are in here as possible in there. But enough with that. Let's get to some of these questions, Jay. So, Jay, you can answer this one. Where can we find sweeper data? Is it something that we can find through a broker like IBKR or somewhere else?
Well, there's a couple different outfits that offer the data. I use Trade Alert. I think Trade Alert is probably the best out there as far as that that raw information. But there's also a lot of, I'm not going to mention names, but there's a lot of outfits out there that aren't as reliable. put it that way. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So
Yeah.
I can't really speak for them, but me personally, the way I'm looking at order flow all day long is through Trade Alert.
Yeah, and you guys should understand that the way when we talk about our proprietary flow alerts, when we talk about the Wise Guy alert feed, that the raw data feed that we have is coming from Trade Alert. We've worked with them for a long time. They're a really, really good data provider. But we have multiple layers of filters on top of that. We have algorithms that we've worked with Trade Alert to develop, through Wall Street Jesus's brain, and Trade Alert to sift through a bunch of the noise and pull out, kind of only the best. And then we have a manual layer on top of that. So every single alert that gets pushed into our private Twitter feed, into the Steam room, throughout our whole system is manually approved by Wall Street Jesus. So there's a ton of filtering that goes on. If you want just the flow, you can go and get that, separately. You want the entire feed, but there's, as we've said, hit pretty hard in this webinar, there's not a lot of people out there who are going to be able to make sense and not get distracted, not get pulled into bad decisions if you're looking at that much information. All right, I'm wondering if by the time we get the sweeper activity, the price action is already done.
In regards to what, again, right? If you're talking about day trading purposes, depending on the move. If let's say, for example, we refer to them as algo sweeps. They come in almost simultaneously as a headline comes across the wire, right? I think Square had one of those today in the afternoon. Okay, over here. All right, so
you want to share your screen?
There it is. So here's an example, right? So you see where this chart gets different, right? So here's where the headline.
You gotta share your screen.
Sweep. Oh, I'm talking to myself here. Hold on a second. Hold on, I gotta find it. Oh yeah. Share screen. I'm talking to myself. I do that a lot too. So here's Square, right? All right. So you see exactly where a headline and algo sweep started firing, right? So now let's say, for example, the stock gets to here, right? And you're late now. You haven't bought it yet, right? I'm not going to chase it. So you use common sense, right? You don't need to trade or hit everything you see, right? So in other words, I'm only looking to day trade the stuff that I can catch and get in early, right? If I got lucky enough and I got in here, I was quick enough, then that's beautiful. But if I didn't, then I'm going to pass and wait for a better setup. So it all depends. But to answer your question, yes or no, is the move already done once the sweep comes in? The answer is no. The answer is no. Gotcha. Again, some don't end up having this type of strength and momentum with the action, right? Some will fizzle out. Some you'll get stopped out on. Some will be big winners. All right. But that's, you see what I'm getting at here? That's all part of the game, right? If you are day trading this stuff and you have stop loss here on your equity, okay, and this is going to be your loss every time, okay, you're going to have a few scratch trades that fizzle out here in between, and then some of your winners are going to look like this. What do you think you're going to end up doing when it's all said and done, big picture was? Right? You're going to make money, right? And that's the name of the game. That's the edge. You understand? That's the edge. An edge in this game is not every time there's a sweep, you're going to buy right here and it's going to look like this. There's no such thing, guys. You're chasing unicorns. There's no such thing. Okay. Yep. An edge in this game is where you can limit your downside. Okay. And your upside is a greater reward, right? So now if you win more than you lose, you're a profitable trader. That's it. Plain and simple.
And that's one of the reasons, I mean, Jay, your answer there just revealed why the people who come and learn from us and who are in our courses and in our room tend to be more experienced. They tend to be a little bit more hardcore, a little more dedicated, because we are not out there talking about anything that's a magical indicator that if you see this, close your eyes and buy. because it just doesn't exist. And unfortunately, a lot of newcomers to the market, people in their first 6 months to a year, whatever, they're still looking for that magic bullet. They're still looking for that thing that will just make it so that they don't have to think. They just have to hit a button and they're going to make money. And it doesn't exist. So a lot of the people who we work with, a lot of the traders who we work with, who are in our courses, in our community, are people who have put in a little bit more time. They put in a year or 2 years in the markets. They've dedicated themselves, and they've shown, I don't have all this figured out yet, but I know that there's something here, and I'm willing to put in the work, to do it. And if that's where your head's at, then that we want to work with you. Those are the kind of people that we want to work with in our courses.
Yeah, you gotta be, again, it's going back to what I said earlier, you gotta be a realist, and especially when you're dealing with options, you definitely have to be a realist. You're gambling, okay? It's just like any other form of gambling. If you do the things you need to do, as far as money management and discipline, okay, if you have an edge, you're going to make money, right? Like professional gamblers, they're betting ball games. They're not hitting 100% at 100% clip. They're hitting in the high 50s, 60 if they're Houdini. You know what I mean? And if you're hitting 60% ball games, you're not working a day in your life, right? So that's what it is. That's what this game is all about. It's not about having that magical system that only spits out winners. And don't get me wrong, you can be, if you don't like to lose, then you have to be even that much more disciplined and that much more selective, right? So
right.
If you don't like losing, I would stress only swing at fat pitches, meaning you're only going to trade the best of the best sweeper activity. You're only going to play when sentiment is favorable, right? The more things you have on your side, the higher the odds are that you're going to cash a ticket. So there are ways around, higher win ratio, higher winning percentage. There are things you can do to improve that. But, if you can't like the action, trade every day and never lose. That's.
Yep. I just got a question about the course discount. Does it apply to private Twitter feed subscribers? No, it does not. But if you've been a private Twitter feed subscriber for a long time, maybe a year or two, then shoot us an email, contact@wellsforjesus.com, and we might be able to work something out with you. All right, there was a couple other really good one here. All right, Jay, this might be if this is like getting too in depth and this is not something you can really explain in this context, then let me know. But what is a legitimate versus an illegitimate sweeper? Like, is there an example of a sweep that looks good, but you shouldn't follow it? Something that might fake you out?
Oh yeah, there are plenty. We look at earnings sweepers, right? So sweeps that are tied to earnings. Or here, I'll give one that's a common mistake you see, on CNBC, on social media. Again, what I think it was Big Rick was asking about before. Okay, let's say somebody comes in today, like that DDD action we saw, or Roblox, whatever. Somebody comes in and buys $500,000 worth of Jan calls in DDD. Okay, you see that sweep. Now that looks like a nice bet, right? That looks like a bet that you should trade off of, an actionable play. But if that player is also closing an existing position, right, for just as much money or sometimes even more money, then that player is actually taking profit on the transaction. That's not an aggressive bet. You know what I mean? Even if you can make the case that it's net bullish, it's still not an aggressive bet. So you see it a lot. Again, people out there who have screens and scanners set, they see one big order in DDD go off, but they don't see that the whole morning that player was spent time closing out other positions. And, that's a lot of times that's where you end up, trying to tail that one order and you don't see the momentum, or you don't see a reaction in the stock. But regardless, that's something you don't want to be playing off of anyhow, for the simple reason that it's not an aggressive bet, you know? So again, what I'm looking for, my goal when I'm looking at the order flow all day long, is to find a player or a fund out there that's accumulating a position and stressing urgency. It's got that conviction. You know what I mean? To have that conviction, that's opening a new bet and, you know, accumulating aggressively. Okay. And that's going to come via sweep. So that's what my eyeballs are screening for all day long. And like Charlie was talking about earlier, there's no way around it. You have to, in other words, if you want to be the individual, if you want to do what I'm doing, okay, you don't want me spitting out the action and doing the work for you. You want to do what I'm doing, okay? There's no way around doing what I'm doing every day. You have to do what I do every day, and that's looking at the flow. So in other words, at the least, you see an order you like, you have to have the ability to go and look at the rest of the action in that particular name and looking at open interest, etc. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to, you're not going to be able to get the goods out of the activity every day. There's no way around it manually. You can't set up an algo or a scan or a screen that does the work for you, right? You either got to have somebody you trust doing it, or you got to do it yourself, one way or another.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, you can refine the process, and you can segment the data in a lot of different ways, and we do a lot of that work for you, but there's no way around to just you can't completely automate this stuff yet. Jay, maybe this is a course question. Andy is asking a really great question about market makers, options market makers, and supply and demand in options. Andy, I think this is the kind of thing that Jay's going to go into in the course, but it's just like, it's a great question, but the answer is too in depth. I think to really touch on right now, after more than what Jay already talked about a little bit earlier in this webinar.
Yeah, and the thing is, Andy, especially like on this webinar, and I recommend this too, because we all have it's a problem that we all tend to do a lot of times is, when we're trying to learn something or something's interesting to us, we get too deep into it. We want to know about every detail that's involved in it. You know what I mean? And that could be overwhelming. That could be a bad thing a lot of times, right? So I give you guys an example. Something that I've used alongside sentiment, which is gamma exposure. Gamma's been a big thing. Why? Because it's important, right? Especially these days in the market. You dive into gamma and you can forget, your head will spin. That's how complicated and overwhelming it can be. But my alert to gamma was for a certain signal out of gamma that worked well with sentiment and sweeper activity. And that's all I wanted, especially initially. That's all I wanted to understand. I don't want, the inner works of gamma and how it's made up and how it's calculated and all that shit. Yeah, maybe if I'm interested in that, I can learn it down the line. But as far as actionable and the ability to make money off it, I just want that signal that lines up with my other stuff, and I know I can make money off it. You know what I mean? So Jay, that's why you want to keep it simple, especially if it's new to you. You don't want to get too overly involved in it.
I think that's a really good point, that especially for the newer traders out there, it's important to listen to that. And one of the analogies that I give in this regard is athletes. Really good athletes have an ability to just zero in and focus on what is important. The only thing that, what is going to determine the difference between success and failure in this, the way I shoot this jump shot or the way I swing my forehand or whatever it is, and just do that. There are people who are mechanics freaks who dig immensely deep down into certain subjects. And sometimes those people can be helpful in terms of coaching or analysis and stuff like that. But often when it comes to actually executing on a day-to-day basis, they're not that great. We've seen this a lot in finance, both, certainly in our own experience in terms of people that we've worked with. We've worked with some people who have PhDs that are incredibly impressive, or masters in financial mathematics, like, brains that are exploding with IQ and the ability to analyze stuff like gamma and options pricing and stuff like that. But when it comes to actually executing on this stuff on a day-to-day basis, they're bogged down in the details. They know too much, which is not to say it's just about finding that balance. It's about finding that strike zone. I think we've done a really good job with the course, and it's up to everybody to find their balance there. But I also, I think Jay's point is well taken. People need to hear that. Like, you don't have to go a mile deep on every single part of your trading in order for it to be of utility to you. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and that's why, like, and then listen, I understand there's probably quite a few people on here who have no interest in the course, or maybe can't afford the course or whatever, and they wanted to come out of this webinar with an understanding of sweeper activity, how maybe they can use it, how they can test run it, see if it applies. And that's why, I mentioned it earlier, like, it's very simply put, you just want to understand, like, a sweep is an aggressive bet, right? And when you see me talk about a sweep in a name, right, if you got to be day trading the name if you're just following me on Twitter, or if you're swing trading the name, the only takeaway should be that there's a higher probability of momentum coming into the name over the short term. Okay, that's as simple as you want to keep it. So if you're looking at charts, right, you may have looked at DDD last night. You see me talk about aggressive sweeper activity coming into DDD. You remember last night you looked at it. It was technically set up. Now, if there's a higher probability of momentum coming into the name, right, you just tilted the odds of that, technical setup you were looking at last night. You just tilted the odds of it working even more. Okay. And that's how you got to look at it. Right. And that's what I like, the way I explain it to a lot of new people. If it's a 50% chance a stock is going to go up or down, right? 50% chance. That's basically what it comes down to. Okay. If the sweeper activity, oh boy, there goes Jules, Charles. If the sweeper activity tilts those odds, right, from 50-50 to 60-40, some will say even greater than that. Think about that. Play
that out over time. Yeah.
Right. And think about, what kind of impact that could have as far as adding that to your trading arsenal. So, that's exactly what it comes down to. And I'm talking about keeping it as simple as possible. And that's the way I would stress anybody who's new to this webinar, if they're trying to get a feel for things and what the hell we're doing here.
Yeah. Start simple and go more complex. And Jay, he's certainly in the course, certainly going to go complex with it at times and go really deep into this stuff and get in the woods at times. And it's up to y'all to determine whether, that's a level of detail that you need and that you want to absorb all that, or whether you're like, what, I take it at face value and I'm good to go. I'm good to trade on some of this stuff. All right, let's do one last question. There's a ton of questions in here that are very specific to, the dynamics of flow and how you trade and how you know whether a sweep is good or not and stuff. And if you guys are curious about a lot of this, certainly encourage you to join the free webinar that we have every single Tuesday after market close, called The Flow Show. The Wall Street Jesus Twitter account, as we talked about, is currently suspended right now. So go to the St. Lucci Twitter account and it's promoted out on there. Every single Tuesday after the close. Jay gives out a ton of free information on this. Or of course, sign up for the course and you'll know all this stuff anyways. So let's do one last question here before we break. There's a lot of any chance you can touch on risk reversal?
Yeah. So that's the stuff that, in the course, like Charlie was mentioning, we're going to have a sort of a ranking system so you understand the strength of the signal from each particular type of sweep, and other forms of flow. A risk reversal, a lot of times the sweep, the buy side, in other words, what a risk reversal is, so everybody understands it, it's a player that sells puts, okay, takes in that premium and uses it to finance calls. All right. I'm sure I lost quite a few newbies there, but in other words, selling puts, right? Not buying puts. He's selling puts. So he brings in that premium and he uses that premium to buy calls. All right. So that's a bullish combination, right? An extremely bullish combination play in the form of options. And a lot of times we see that, especially when there's size and there's that aggressive nature where they continue to add to that position, that bullish risk reversal. A lot of times that's the footprints of hedge funds, institutions, some of the bigger players out there. That's how they like to go about building a position in a name that they have confidence in. So as far as swing position, right, or investing that time frame, that's something that you would focus on. And again, in the course, we'll talk about that in a lot more detail. But today we were trying to keep the webinar solely sweeps because that's like kind of a separate thing in a league of its own, Yep. But that's the general understanding of it.
We can only do so much in one sitting, which brings me to next week, which is the third episode in this series. We are going to have a veteran trader from the room. Anybody who's in the Steam room will know who this guy is. I think you'll all be very excited to see him on and hear his perspective. He's going to keep it anonymous too, so it's just going to be me on there with two anonymous traders, which I kind of love. But the reason we're bringing on somebody else is because it's really helpful to hear. We've learned that from somebody else who uses his information, who isn't, and it wasn't in the public sphere. It wasn't educating people. And this doesn't have a business of doing it. This guy is just a trader who, is quite good at what he does and uses this information as integrated into his trading. So we're going to have him on. That'll be Wednesday of next week because Memorial Day is obviously Monday. So we're taking Monday off. But Wednesday of next week, we hope to see you guys join us for that. And then, of course, the course starts June 14th. We've only, spots are ticking down. I think we had 84 when we started the webinar. I don't know how many we have left, but certainly encourage you guys to jump in, sign up. Your free access to the platform starts whenever you sign up. So you get extra free days the earlier you sign up. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate all of your time and attention and the great questions. And we hope to see you next week. And
I'll see you tomorrow.
And catch the Flow Show tomorrow with Jay. That's completely free to the public. You get the link on the St. Lucci Twitter account. All right, Jay. Appreciate you being here, man.
Charlie. Thanks, everybody.
See you guys.